What's going on? All right, this is going to be a 4-part series. Okay, starting a business after 50, it can be done, and the best bet you're ever going to bet is on yourself. Okay, I just recently did a show a few weeks ago talking about, is your job really safe? Which, for my friends recently, can attest to you that it is not. And they were there for years, and they were top performers and everything like that. Now they're career redirected and they're going somewhere else. Myself, I decided to start betting on myself. So did Bonnie, my last guest. So did Eric, my business coach. We all decided we were tired of renting our income. We're going to start building some equity. So this series is for the people who are ready to start a business, even after 50, who have had that career redirection, or they've just been working for somebody for so long. They have, like I said, they have something in here that they really want to build, or the skills that they've accumulated, they're ready to take that on themselves and use those skills to their advantage and build something for themselves. So there's not going to be any, we're not asking for permission here. There's not going to be any fluff. There's not going to be any platitudes. It's just, the things that we've won through hard work, and there's going to be some costs. Okay. But it's going to pay off, and like I said, we're not apologizing for shit. Okay. We're just moving forward. So we all know, the best time to start a business was years ago, but the second best time is to start right now. Okay. Again, you got to really start by betting on yourself. Okay. There's, some myths to this thing that people just have in their heads, because you spent decades trying to, you've been trading your time for income, and, we're trying to make the case that you really need to own your time. Okay. You need to own your skills. They're yours. You've built them over these past 50 plus years. So it's time to start using them to your advantage. And the boldest bet you're ever going to make, but it's going to be the smartest one, it's going to be on yourself. I know I wish I had started sooner. Okay. I was a business banker for 30 years. Okay. I helped so many people start their businesses or acquire an existing business. I helped them, structure, debt, leverage it, plan for expansion, exit strategies that works, right? So, I had the cushy chair like we talked about in a couple episodes ago. We talked about, the steady income and the bonuses. Although corporate kept changing the payout structure, and it was never in my favor. I know that. So, and then, came that day, just like I said, just like recently, 4 of my friends faced this too, that, corporate was making some changes, and I found out I wasn't a part of it. Okay. So that's when I said, okay, the core idea from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that most people are trained from day one to work for money. Okay. You trade your hours for a paycheck, and you're never trained on how to actually make the money work for you. Right. So, any job, even a great one, like I said, you're still just renting. Okay. You trade your time for income month to month, and, the landlord, i.e. the employer, can still end the lease whenever they want. They can career redirect you. They can downsize, lay off, the corporate's restructuring, whatever excuse they want to come up with. Right. And even I don't care how long you've been working there, 10, 20, 30 years, you own nothing. You own nothing in the business, and they will post your job and replace you tomorrow and don't give a shit. Okay. So is that the place where you really think that this is safe and everything's cool? Because like I said, it's not. All right. Now, if you are self-employed, okay, again, you don't want to trade your time for money and do this thing kind of, one client at a time. You really got to start thinking more of a growth mode. Okay. Your goal isn't just to stop working for a boss. It's to stop trading the time for dollars, period. Okay. You want to start building something that has value, whether you're personally there or not. Okay. That's a viable business. And at first, of course, starting a business, it's messy, it's uncertain, it's imperfect. You're going to mess shit up. Okay. God knows I have. And you have to constantly, keep evaluating, and keep, evolving. It's going to keep morphing. It's going to keep changing. I mean, we started out as a podcast, then we went to video marketing. Now we're doing podcast production training. Okay. Now we're a full blown media group. All right. So, and again, this all happened this year. Okay. So there's going to be a constant evolution. Okay. But the thing is, you're building something for yourself. Okay. If something goes wrong, it's on you. If something goes well, okay, you get to reap the reward of it, of your hard work. If you're working somewhere and you close some big deal, yeah, you'll get comped, you get a nice paycheck, things like that. But what did they make? You're getting crumbs on comp compared to what the company made or what the company's gonna make. And again, if they decide, and like I said, I talked about this in the other episode, they don't see us 50 plus. They don't see our experience. They don't see our work ethic. They don't see our experience. They don't see that as a value. They see it as an expense. And if they can get a kid to do it cheaper, even though they're not as productive as you, they'll take that. Okay. Again, they will post your job tomorrow and not care. So again, think about that. When you are betting on yourself, okay, and we keep going back to renting and leasing and all this other kind of stuff, things like that. But think about this. When you own a home and you make a payment, okay, you're building equity in your home, right? That's what you need to do for yourself. You need to build equity in yourself. You need to build equity in your business, okay? It's slower, it's scarier. There's not going to be that check there, a couple times a month, things like that. But you're building something that over time will pay you tenfold what you're ever going to make at a corporation. Okay. This is really, it sounds reckless, but it's really not. Okay. Betting on yourself after, you got a proven track record for 20, 30 years. You can solve problems. Okay. You can deliver on, deadlines, you're very informed on, what it is that you're doing, things like that. And you can pivot and make decisions, and you see when something is not working well, and, and redirect things like that. These are all things, this experience, they're not going to teach some kid at school. Okay. And this is experience that you cannot readily replace, no matter how much corporate thinks that they can. Okay. You have more data. You're an asset. Okay. All the experiences that you've been through, and that's data you can go back to and rely on, because it's going to be there because you actually live this. This is not theory. You've done all this. Okay. I think one of the myths that hold people back from starting their own business is, they think that they need this perfect plan to get started. Now, what did George Patton say? Okay. He said, a good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan next week. Okay. I wholeheartedly believe in that philosophy, because the reality is the plan that you're going to make at first, it's going to go wrong. Okay. Or you're going to, you think again, perfect example, November of 25 for this year. I had my business plan all laid out. I went over it with my business coach, Eric. We looked at it and said, okay, yeah, this looks pretty feasible, looks pretty good. We got some decent goals here. Decent plan of action. Blew the whole thing up in January. Okay. Started again, went from podcast to marketing to podcast, everything, it changed and evolved. We went from, HTD podcast, HTD video marketing. Now we're the HTD media group. Okay. All that changed. It's been 6 months, 7 months you count this month. Okay. All that plan is just, we say this in the military all the time. Okay. We have an op order, right? for those of you that are civilians, our business plans are op orders. And when the bullets start coming at you, that whole thing goes out the window. Okay. And then we have what's called fragos. We make adjustments going forward. That's what's going to happen. When you start a business, that's totally going to happen. Okay. Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. No, you just know, hey, and it could be great because you could say, hey, I started with this goal here. I think I was going to do X, Y, Z. Just like when I started working out back in the pool, I started out like, oh yeah, I'm going to swim. I hadn't swam in a long time. I got to get back in shape. So I'm probably just going to do, a couple 100 meters, take a break. Ended up first time doing 1,000. Then the last 2 workouts, I'm already back up to a mile. It's been 4 workouts. 2 of them have been mile swims. Okay. So if I was basing a business plan on that, hey, I'm going to start out with maybe a couple 100 meters and then that blow that out of the water, pun intended, I guess, if you will, to where I start swimming a mile. Okay. We got to change the business plan because apparently my goals were way too low and we're blowing it out of water, or vice versa. The other thing could happen. You might not be getting clients. Things aren't moving forward. But like I said, it's the reality. Like I said, if the plan's gonna go wrong, so movement's gonna generate information. Waiting just generates more planning. Okay. It's like you got, like, again, the saying, the improvise, adapt, overcome. Okay, you're gonna start it. It's gonna get messy. You're gonna clean it up. You're gonna make adjustments. You're gonna pivot. And you're gonna tune it up, and you're gonna get there. I mean, building a business like parenting, man. You're never gonna feel 100% ready. Okay, nobody ever does, and I don't care if you're 20, 50, 60. Doesn't matter. Okay, you're never gonna feel completely ready. Right? If I hear you say that you're too old to learn new systems, let me tell you what. I'm going on 55, and I'm learning new things every day with AI, editing tools, this and that, lighting. Wish I got to get better lighting in here. I'm working on that. So, you're not really competing with how fast you can learn. Okay. You're competing on, your judgment and, what's that worth? And you got 50 plus years of doing this. Like I said, you're going to adapt to things. Okay. 50 plus were a lot more adaptable than people think. Okay. And, I do understand that being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, because a lot of people think that if they're good at their job, the business is going to run itself. That's not necessarily the case, because let's say you're a chef, or let's say you're a mechanic. Okay, you're really good at it. You can burn all day, right? That's awesome. But there's 2 different jobs. Okay, you got to learn the books, and you got to know how to cook. Okay, you got to learn the books, and you got to know how to turn a wrench. There's different stages in this, and you have to be able to adapt to all of it. Okay, you're gonna delegate. You're going to get bookkeepers. You're going to get CPAs. You're going to get, assistants. You're going to, but at first you do have to wear all the hats. Okay. That is a fact. These are, this is reality. Okay. Now, you got to understand that, we should be trying to learn every day, no matter, what age we are. Life should always be a constant learning process. All right. So, starting a business over 50 is not something impossible, because people are doing it every day. Okay, myself included. All right. Now, here's one myth. It's not all. I promise it's not going to be all doom and gloom. But people think it's like, oh, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to go golfing every Friday. Brother, I wish that was the case, because I would love to be doing that. I will be. And I will be soon. It's going to happen. But as of right now, nah. Later on, that will happen. Okay. And that's what you plan for. But if you don't have the right systems in place, if you don't have the right automations in place, if you don't have the right personnel in place, if you have to be there every day, day to day, making all the decisions, you're never going golfing. Okay. Period. And you're not really building a business. You're just building another job. And that's not what we started a business for. So the reality is, when you start a business, especially at first, you're going to work harder than you ever did in your life. We're talking 14, 16, 18-hour days, nights, weekends, holidays. You're going to be constantly thinking about this thing. You know, when I try to take Sundays off, honor the Sabbath, it's the Lord's Day, I don't work on Sundays, but I catch myself in my mind thinking about, okay, shut that off. It'll be there tomorrow. But I mean, that's just, you know, when you're starting a business, that's just the way it goes. Now, again, it's not going to always be that way. But when you're first starting out, like I said, you're betting on yourself. Then you're working towards that goal. You're working towards that goal of, okay, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better at doing the operation. I'm going to get better. But then eventually, we're going to get the cash flow well enough to where it's like, okay, we can start delegating. Got to have that first and foremost in your mind to start delegating. Like Andy Stanley says, you know, then the next generation leader, there are people out there that love to do what you hate. Pay them to do it. So the second you start accumulating some cash, getting some cash flow in, start paying those people to do it. Get that off your plate so that way you can get back to doing what you're passionate for and why you started this thing to begin with. So we know there's going to be some cost. There's going to be time invested, blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, things like that. There's going to be some cash flow gaps, okay? Money's not just going to, as soon as you turn on the lights, the people are, you know, the customers aren't just going to start coming in, okay? That'd be great if it did. That'd be awesome. You know, and there's going to be clients that are going to slow pay, you know, your best friend, your family, your mom, your significant other, spouse, they're gonna be like, are you sure about this? Everybody's gonna want to, you know, piss in your Cheerios. All right, if you said me, yeah, it's like, if you prayed about it and you know this is what you're meant to do, okay, the hardship is temporary, okay, it is survivable, okay. And every founder who made it through that part will tell you the exact same thing, okay? What it's going to pay, you know, sooner for most people, and it's a lot sooner than you think, you're going to be able to choose your clients. You're going to be able to say no to jobs. Because people think at first, like, oh, I got to take every customer that comes down the pike. You know, even like I said, when I was in banking, a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, I got to take, you don't got to take every deal. If you don't think it's a good deal, don't take it. If you don't think a client's a right fit for your company, this is your company. You're calling the shots. It's not like when you were working for ABC or XYZ, they told you, hey, we're taking on this client or you're taking this client. This, that. Even when I was in the bank, I fired clients. I said, I'm not working with you. I'm not working with you. Okay, you go find another banker because I'm not it. I'm not the right fit for you. And you can most certainly do that when you own the company. Okay, don't be afraid to do that. You don't have to take every single job. It's going to feel like, oh, I need the money. I need the money. I need the money. Again, you're trading time for money then. Pick the right clients that fit the vibe of what you do. Okay, that buy into what it is that you are providing for them. You're providing a need. Okay, you're helping one of their pain points. Somebody has a need for video. Okay, they don't know how to edit it. They don't know how to script it. They don't know how to shoot it. That's why we're here. That's what we help them with. Okay, and not every client's going to be our client, and I'm okay with saying no. You know why? Because I own the place. But there's a lot of people I will say yes to, because there's a lot of people out there that I really do want to work with. I think they have a great business and a great mission, great hearts, and those are the people that I want to work with. So. That's the thing. When you own the business, you don't have to ask for permission. You decide who you want to work with, and you're going to understand that your name, and you're signing those front of the checks, that has value. Okay. Now you got to think about this. Like I said, we go back to owning it. Okay. When you have a job, okay, when you work for somebody else again, and they walk you out the door, everything resets to zero. You got nothing, right? Now, point's not really to, brace for the pain. Okay, again, this is not all doom and gloom, but listen, here's the deal. Okay, we tell it straight, right? We don't bullshit around here. Okay, I want you to walk into this thing with your eyes wide open. Okay, I'm not going to bullshit you. All right. So you're going to feel those hard weeks. You're going to, think that your plan's going all wrong. You're going to, imposter syndrome is going to punch you in the face every day. Like, oh my God, what am I doing? This and that. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep moving forward. You got to keep fighting. Keep praying. Just, like I said, if God moves you a different direction, you better follow his direction. Don't follow your own, follow his. Trust me. But if you, like I said, you're prayed about this, you're all in, keep pushing forward. Okay, you're good at what you do. People need the services you're providing. Keep moving forward. Okay, Steve Jobs started Apple in his freaking garage. All right, think about that. I don't think he was 50 when he did it, but it's still, it works. All right. Like I said, personally, I think when you're 50, again, you have an advantage. You have lived life. You've recognized patterns. You've seen bad decisions, good decisions. You've made bad decisions. You've made good decisions. Okay. And, you survived all that. That's an education college can't provide. Okay. You paid the tuition of life. All right. You've lived this thing. You've seen this thing. That's the thing that I don't think most people really understand about when you're 50 plus. Like I said, you have seen and done some things, and now if you're starting a company, things that you definitely don't want your company to be. Okay, and as an employer, you don't want to treat your people. You want to treat your people a way that makes them want to stay, that makes them want to come to work. That they feel empowered. Okay, they have, that's the type of environment you want a culture that you're trying to create for your company. At least I hope so. That's what I'm trying to create. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody. When you own the company, there's no like, oh, well, I gotta, Sally is the top performer for 15 years at the company, and she walks on water, and this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you need to do it more like Sally. You know what? Sally can do her thing. Steve can do his thing. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to do it my way, right? Because I've seen all the plays, and like I said, Sally may be great at doing one thing, but you know what I'm saying? If she didn't have that support system and things like that, let's see what she could do on her own and see how far she goes, or he, or whoever, you know what I mean? I really like the empowerment of being a business owner and creating that culture, that everything I'm trying to make HD Media Group be the place where I wish I could have worked. Like I said, I want people, like I said, my VA, I talk to her all the time. I'm constantly asking her, are we meeting your needs? Am I helping you in your goals, in your life? Okay. I ask her that all the time. Okay. Or how am I doing? Do you need anything else? What else can I help you with? What can we do? And I understand, there are certain aspects of the job that she wants to do, and there are certain aspects she does because she's helping me out. But I'm cognizant of the tasks that she does not want to perform. And I told her, I said, I'm going to make you a promise. I will get more help to get those tasks done, so that way you don't have to do them. But for right now, I really need you to do this for me so we can grow this thing. And she's all in, because she knows my yes is my yes and my no is my no. Okay. And I'm going to do it. Okay. And I will do that for her, because like I said, I'm an old school Italian guy. You do me a solid, I'm going to do you a solid. She's helped me out in the beginning. Trust me. She has first right of refusal on any job moving forward, promotions, things like that. She's number one on the list. And I'm going to make sure of that. And she knows that. And that's why she's willing maybe to perform some of the tasks that I need to get done. Not necessarily, making her all giddy and happy, but she's doing them for me because she knows what we're doing here. She's buying into the vision. She's appreciating the fact I'm appreciating her. That makes her want to work harder. Okay. So, and like I said, that's the one thing that I get to build now because I'm calling the shots. I get to build the culture. All right. We've all had those bad bosses. We've had bad clients. We've had systems that sucked. You know it and I know it. All right. Like, why do we have 10 different systems to do a job? And this because corporate just keeps piling money on the problem. They're not trying to, make it more efficient and streamlined. They're trying to find the cheapest way to do it, or so they won't invest the money on a platform that could make our jobs 100 times easier, or vice versa. You got all these redundant systems where we're wasting a shit ton of money on a bunch of stuff that we don't really need, that isn't really helping us move the mission forward. And they're telling us, go sell more shit. And it's like, bro, we can make this more efficient, okay, without firing everybody. Well, I said, but you got to be, the corporate world, they don't want to, they don't have, they don't want the ego check. Say, hey, maybe we're fucking this up, which that's something that they don't want to hear. But when you're the owner, you understand, hey, you know what? I'm fucking this up. I better fix it, and you get to pivot and make those decisions right now, which is great, right? You know what you're building toward, right? So again, let's start building that sooner rather than later. Because you don't want that regret. Again, I wish I'd started this 20 years ago. I really do, man. When I was younger and super, way more vibrant and this, that, and the other. But God had a plan. So I'm trusting his plan. Even though I'm over 50, doing this thing, it's moving forward. Maybe not quite at the pace I wanted to, but it's moving forward. And I got to trust him. And like I said, I know he's with me. So that's the thing you guys got to wrap your mind around. But, waiting is not going to make it better. So the best decision that you can make is betting on yourself, okay? Because then it's all on you. There's no corporate decision making. Hey, we're going to change your comp. We're going to do this. We're not going to book these kind of deals. This, that. You know the business you want to run, and you make the decision yes or no, right? So this is, like I said, this is episode 1 of a 4-part series. Okay. I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you to write down one myth you've been telling yourself. I want you to name it, put a number on it. This is not a feeling, okay? And what it's actually going to cost you to keep renting your income and not moving forward and not owning for something for yourself, okay? You spent your whole career proving you can deliver for someone else, all right? This is the version where you finally get to deliver for yourself and your family and building that legacy. Okay. The only thing standing between, I wish I'd started sooner and I'm glad I started when I did, is showing up tomorrow and doing this. All right. So now the next episode, all right, episode 2, tune in. We're going to talk about things that can kill a bet faster than a bad market. And that's a bad partner. All right. We're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about ways we're going to protect what we're building. Here in closing up the show, and here's the deal. Just want to give all honor, glory, and praise to my Lord Jesus Christ, who, saved my soul and gives me the ability to do this show. Without him, I couldn't do anything. I also want to give thanks to my family. My wife, my kids support me doing this and, backing me up. I couldn't do any of this without them also. Got to thank the sponsors, of course. Everybody that, supports the show. And, of course, the fans. The people that subscribe to the show. I wouldn't do any of this without you because it wouldn't be a show. So just want to say thank you all very much. Continue to, educate and elevate. Get out there, pursue your passions, pursue your dreams.